Well, hello and welcome. I am Chris Swinney, Director of Spiritual Life at Southwest Christian School. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Joey Richards, Associate Head of School. We're going to get more to Joey in a second. I want to talk about what this is. This is Family Matters, and this is the first time that we're doing it in podcast form. And so video podcast, we're hoping that this will not only reach the SCS community, but reach outside of the SCS community. And so we're attempting this. And I don't know how many more we're going to do. I don't know what this is going to look like in the future. God's going to take it, and he's going to give us guidance, and we're going to listen. And so today we're specifically looking at, as we talk about training up our kids and the way they should go, we're taking a look at technology, right? And there's a vastness, right? When it comes to technology, there's phones, there's AI, there's the internet. And in 3 years, there's going to be a whole new plethora of things to come out. And so how do we navigate those? How do we, as parents, how do we equip our kids, without overprotecting them, but also in a place where we are protecting them? And so Joey has written a book. He's in the process of writing this book. It's a fun process.
What is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's on my computer.
It's on your computer. Yeah.
Show it to you.
Well, and there's editing, and there's revisions, and there's the process.
Yes.
It's called Pocket Idols, and so there will be some things that Joey has done in his research that will address some of these things that we're going to talk about with technology and phones and all the things. Right. Before we do this, I do want to. This is good. So Joey didn't know I was going to do this part right here.
I can imagine.
This is awesome. Joey, obviously in his time of researching and preparing for this book, Joey's gifted in the world of his relational capacity with our students. And so to give you kind of a glimpse of that, I want to show you something real quick. This is good. Check this out.
Summer. 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 Summer! 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 It's gonna be summer!
All right, so that's middle school principal just a couple years ago.
It looks like more years ago.
Okay,
than I want to admit.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Yeah, you can see the relational capacity that he has with them. And so as he talked about, preparing to write Pocket Idols, there was a number of opportunities that he had to be able to ask kids some questions that, not from the parent perspective, but from the student perspective, what are you seeing? What are the pros and cons? What are some good things? What are some things that, as you're looking at your friends, that are damaging? And so he got to take part in this. And so, if you will, real quick, just give me a glimpse of Pocket Idols before we dive into the questions.
Yeah. So, you probably can tell how I feel about it just by the title, right? That we are carrying around these little devices in our pockets that are begging to become idols in our lives, and so, it's calling to us on a regular basis, come and look after me, come and take care of me. So I don't know, just watching kids go through that transition, like whenever I got to SCS, the iPhone had been invented at about the year that I got here. So, I started at SCS the 06-07 school year. And so that's, the iPhone came out right around then. And, SCS being a, fairly affluent community, parents and kids started adopting the phone, pretty early on. And I could see, the pre-iPhone world, and all the way to AI and today. And so I just had this, just pit in my stomach as a school leader, watching kids and families trying to navigate that. And so it gave me a real concern, and I felt like I had a unique seat, at the table, and thought, well, I need to write about that. I was also asked on a regular basis for like advice from families, being in that middle school seat, where, a lot of families were, spending less time with their kids. Their kids are pushing away in the middle school years. And so whenever a kid is doing that, as a mom or dad, you want to give them some way to communicate with them. And so it seemed to be the time that people were adopting the smartphone into their life. And it just wasn't the same as giving them the cell phone that, to type a text message.
Yeah.
You had to push a button 3 times to get a certain letter.
That's not as cool.
No, it's definitely not as cool. And so, watching that and having that concern, and seeing it, God put me here for that time. And I would give people advice, and I'd come to a set of things that I would tell them. And of what I was projecting I was going to do with my own child, because I didn't have a kid that was that age yet. I had a little kid, one of them. And now, of course, we have 2 kids, and now they're, one's graduated from SCS, but this was all before I started kind of the project, before he was even of the age to get a phone. Yeah. And so I was kind of projecting out, how am I going to do this based on what I'm seeing other parents do and the feedback they were giving, all the way to seniors and what their parents were saying they would do differently. And so it's just such a, God ordained kind of unique spot on the bus. But thanks for asking.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. So you probably, as you're listening, watching this, already noticed like a bell just went off, and there's kids going in the hallway right now. We're at Southwest Christian School. We're on this, beautiful lake, as you can see right here. And so, really thankful we can do this, but we are at a school. And so, wanted to make sure that didn't surprise you if you were hearing things in the background. So let's dive into this. And my hope again is that there are members of the SCS community. There are members that have no idea who SCS is, that are taking part in watching this, or intrigued by, how do we navigate our kids and technology? So let me just ask you this first. In your research and what you've seen, what are our kids up against in the world of technology?
First of all, they're taking advice from 2 guys that dress like each other.
We look great.
We apparently dress like
we
each
did
other.
not. We didn't plan this at all, but it definitely happened just naturally. Just to be clear. Okay.
Absolutely. So, really, you might want to consider your life choices if you're watching this and you're taking advice from 2 guys wearing vests,
completely
navy
fair.
vests. Anyway.
Completely fair.
So, what kids are up against today? It's hard not to, as a parent, not to look back at what your childhood was like. And then look at today's kids and see, what it is that they're up against. What was life like for us, and how you could turn on a TV on a Saturday morning and you were going to watch cartoons, or it was going to be kid-friendly programming and stuff like that. And I think the world that kids are growing up in today, with these screen-based, in the research, you look at screen-based childhood versus play-based childhood, is what you'll find. And we had play-based childhoods, and
my parents never knew where I was.
That's right. And the nostalgic stories of, whenever the street light came on, that was the time that got home, or whatever. All of the stories, we can bemoan that fact. It's not what kids are growing up with today, And so they have access to screens, and parents all handle that in a just a wide array of different strategies and and all of that. And so. What they're up against today is most of their parents have a phone addiction. Most of us have, this is a part of our daily life. If we have a smartphone, we have our computers here with us. And, all this is happening on a computer, on a device.
You're watching this on a screen.
It's ubiquitous, right? It's a part of what we're doing, and kids are growing up. You think about that time of a kid's life, there's a lot of mimicking going on, right? They learn how to walk because they see you walking. They want to do that because they see you doing it. And so, what they're growing up with today is they're watching their parents paying a lot of attention to the small screen, or to a little bit larger screen, or to a really big screen. And it's like our lives go from one screen to another. Yeah. And so, of course, they're growing up in a very different context than what you and I grew up in, because there was one screen and it was in one place, and we all went to that thing, and it was like a family deal that we did to
Sure.
go do together.
Yeah.
And now we all kind of personally do our own, screen. And so no wonder kids want one of those screens that's their personal screen as early as possible.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they're being left out of what's going on.
And well, especially too, like we did this as kids. Whatever bike you had, I wanted that same bike or better.
That's right.
You know, as my daughters have seen,
Yeah.
their friends have.
Absolutely.
Wait, you got an iPhone? And
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, okay, well then I'm going to start asking mom and dad
Yes.
for me to get an iPhone. And
Yes.
yeah, just this cycle. Yeah.
Yes. It's so funny you say it because I'm like the iPhone 12 guy. I've got like this little baby
Sure.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Every time I take it out and I'm with some other person, they're like, what is that? Like, it's like an iPhone 6 or what? And I'm like, I'm 50, I'm almost 50 years old, and I feel like I'm a kid still. Like we're comparing, what devices we have.
Yeah.
And that's part of it too. It's like this, the world that the kids are navigating is like this perpetual adolescence, where, it's like we never got over being 13 years old or something like that. And there's this comparison game that happens 24/7, and it happens with adults, it happens with kids. And I'm not saying that's everybody all the time, everywhere, but you can see, like in the research, the extension of adolescence, that's a thing. And some people never grow up.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you had an uncle like this. I have some uncles who I feel like never grew up.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
They were the fun uncle. You had the fun uncle.
I've got fun uncles. I mean, they're grown up though. But I mean, I see what you're saying. I've got some
You could
family.
get in some trouble with your uncle.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know if you're watching. Sorry if you're watching this. My bad.
My uncles might. I don't know. But
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm talking about. So the world that the kids are navigating today, I mean, it's super interesting because they have somewhat, in a lot of cases, they have absentee parents. They may physically be there.
Right.
But they're always at work,
Yeah.
Because they're always on.
Yeah.
You're never off.
No, there's always access.
Because you've got people can get a hold of you. They need to be able to get a hold of you. Your phone rings all the time. Our phones will buzz in our pockets
While we're doing this right here.
It's already happened a couple of times
Yeah.
since I've been sitting here.
Yeah.
And there's I bemoan kind of the lack of protection, of kids. Allison and I have talked several times. Allison's my wife. Allison and she's a fourth grade teacher at our school. And I'm an awesome fourth grade teacher at our school.
Definitely.
Super lovely. Anyway, we bemoan the childhood that we had where, if you were in a restaurant or something like that with your parents whenever you were growing up, if there was a bar there or something like that and some people started getting rowdy and somebody, used a cuss word or something like that out loud, another gentleman would get up from a table and go over and say, hey, there's kids present here. That's what that person would say.
Yeah.
And I remember some instances like that and it being like, young kids, it's like, we're not protecting their ears anymore. If they're, what are they listening to? If they put headphones on and they're on a device, you don't have any idea what's being said. So I don't know. I mean, they're navigating so many things.
Yeah.
And it's just so much, and we see the effects of it. So I know we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
But.
Well, and we all admit too, right? The childhood version of myself, the middle school, the high school version of myself. Like, I didn't have wisdom yet. I wasn't even close to it. I don't know that I was willing to admit that at the time.
Right.
But as I look back on it, for sure, struggle with that. So, all right. So then so we're talking about kids. What about the parents, right? What are the parents up against? And we've talked about bits and pieces of this already, but I wasn't sure if there's anything more you had to add on it. What are our parents up against as they now are trying to train their kids up in this environment where there are screens everywhere, and every kid wants every screen?
Sure. Yeah, I think the things that I would add for parents, I mean, there's a lot of pressure for the fact that we're never off. So I mentioned, your work can get a hold of you 24/7. You can answer emails all day, all night long. There's no shortage of that. And so there's pressure on moms and dads, constantly, because it's like your child needs something from you, your work needs something from you, and if you're awake, you're working. And I think that's part of being an American as well, which I don't know if that's going to be a part of this conversation, but there's a
the
thing
American
there.
dream.
For
sure.
Yes. The dream is to just squeeze that turn up for all
much
it's got.
as you can.
Absolutely.
Yes,
And so, work, and then retire, whatever. Anyway, so that context that parents are, they're going through such this short window. We see it now, with you having a daughter in college, me having a 19-year-old. Whenever I took the job here, we were pregnant. Allison was pregnant, technically.
Yeah, technically.
I really. Okay. Anyway, we'll stop at that. Anyway.
Good call. Well done.
So, that felt like a minute, I mean, it was just a blip, right? Yeah. And you and I in our relationship are often talking about kind of in light of eternity, and how it's a vapor, or biblically we have we have a very clear understanding of this is just a blip, in that long tail of eternity, that this is just a moment that we're having here. And as a parent, we get like this 18-year window that is like 90% of the time we get with our kid. Yeah. But yet we are distracted for that whole 18-year period because of work concerns and all of those things. And it's like, you want to, make enough money to be able to have your child in an educational environment that you want them in. And maybe it takes both of us working. Yeah. And it's like, how can I focus? How can I stop? How can I pause? Sure. How can I, how can I, just, meditate on the fact that this is my one shot at this. I don't get to go redo this.
Yeah, for sure.
And say, okay, we did it. We went 18 years one time. Let's do it over again. Yeah. And now let me do it better since now that I know what I'm doing. Yeah. But you don't get to do that. No. It's like it's over. And you get to live with the consequences of how you did that 18-year period, but for the grace of God. And I just think, man, parents have to manage all these pressures on their time. And it's so difficult. So I really feel for moms and dads.
One of the things I'm noticing we've seen this, you as middle school principal, I taught middle school Bible, was the concept of the pact, right? Mm-hmm. They come into middle school and they're like, hey, let's wait together. Band together. And
it's the parents saying this. The kids are not saying this.
Kids aren't saying it all. They're ready. Yeah. And then the parents are like formulating these plans behind the scenes saying, what if we all just say, hey, you're not going to have social media yet. Yep. You're not going to have access to your internet on your phone. You're not going to have an iPhone. It's not going to happen yet.
Yeah. And none of your friends are either. We're all in it together.
All in this together. Yeah. Right. And then it takes one, right? It takes one kid to just give the best case they can give. And if that parent
in a moment of weakness,
in a moment of weakness, or maybe
the only thing they ask for birthday,
right?
Something like that. Right. Christmas is the one gift I want.
Yes, and maybe the kid did a stellar job of presenting, and then the parents are like, you know what, you're right.
Yeah.
The thing that got to me was like, Kinsey's going to be going to Frisco to play in games. Mm-hmm. I'd like to be able to have access to her. I'd like to be able to see her location. Like, there are all these things, right? Mm-hmm. And so, parent folds on this, and they get them the phone, and boom, their kid gets the new, iPhone 28X RT, and then they bring it to school, and all their friends are like, oh, you got it. You got it.
Yeah, they're now the coolest kids in school.
They're now, in this specific group, they are.
Sure. For sure.
And they go home and they tell their parents, all the other friends who don't have the phone yet.
That's the news of the day.
Yes,
for sure. It's the news of the week.
Yep. And then they're like, hey, Johnny's dad let him get one, so can we get one now? And that's the argument. So there's this.
We should out who that parent.
No,
is.
I don't know.
Let's say their name.
It's happened several times. Honestly, let's not say anybody's name, but that happens, right? That pressure. There's the pressure that you have, and man, I don't want to mess this up. I get one opportunity. But then there's also the pressure that we kind of accidentally give one another, not meaning to, not intentional. It's just kind of built into the system in regards to what we get our kids and what that looks like, and the comparison games that kids like to play with one another. Yep. And so I think that's another pressure as well, which is big.
For sure.
So as as you're doing your research for Pocket Idols, I would imagine that you just came across some data that was like, mind-boggling for you. They're like, okay, this is going to be the main part of the book here. This is going to be the main part of if I ever teach this series or if I do a podcast. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that stats showed you? And I would imagine there's many different areas, layers of this, but what's some of the things that jumped out at you in regards to phones, internet?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can look at, like, there's certain, I'm a graph person. We're fairly visual, I think, individuals. And there's one graph, and it's kind of the smoking gun for me. Yeah. And it was, it was some research that just showed kind of the timeline of starting in 2000 and going to like 2018, and you see that in 2011, 2012, that all of these terrible things like suicide, self-poisoning, major like depressive episodes, depression symptoms start jumping, and it's like parabolic, and it's like these things kind of bounce around through the early 2000s and into 2008. Even in 2008, like there's a big change, but it's not it's not above kind of a threshold. And then once you see 2012 roll around, you see these things start to skyrocket. And so, of course, I mean, we have hindsight and that the smartphone, the iPhone coming out in 2007, and you see the suicide rate immediately start to jump.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of other things going on. This is kind of pre the housing market bubble, but adolescent, kids, I mean, how much really does it, I mean, it affects.
Sure.
Please
Absolutely.
don't, scream
it
at your
does.
computer right
Yeah.
now. It affects, so the suicide rate starts to climb then, but in 2012, that's Instagram, and the social media's kind of going over 50% of adoption with that age group of kids, with adolescents. And then you see it, just skyrocket.
Yeah.
And so, I saw that early on while I was researching for the book. And it was like, people would say, well, correlation doesn't equal causation. And we have to do a lot more research to get to the point where we can say that's really what's going on. And I'm like, dude, our kids are going to be done by the time you get done doing your research. They're going to be done with adolescence.
We're going to wait for them to go through it before we decide to say, is this a big deal?
Right. Let's slow down. Let's hit the brakes, or whatever. I'm like, no, there's kids' lives that are happening right now. And if we wait on this, how many lives will be lost? Because we were asleep at the wheel, or we weren't willing to look at this, or it was inconvenient because we wanted to be able to get a hold of our kid, or something like that. And so I just kind of started, bucking against what I was seeing was becoming normal. And at that time here at our school, 12, 13, was about the time kids were getting phones. It was happening in middle school.
Sure. Yeah.
And I'll say today, and this isn't to our credit, is that it's like fourth grade.
Yeah.
My wife teaches fourth grade.
Yeah.
And the 10th birthday happens in the fourth grade.
Yep.
And it's like there's a whole bunch of people that make the decision whenever they're 10 years old.
Now's the time.
And, you and I both know the problem with that is a 10-year-old, loves cat memes.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
And wants to just, group chat with a small group of friends. And it's all, pretty innocuous stuff, so as a parent, you do a good job of like monitoring what they're saying and things like that, maybe mirrored to your phone or something like that. And you look through it and it's like, okay, well, this is harmless.
Yeah.
And so we fall asleep at the wheel, and over a couple of years, well, what happens to 10-year-olds? They become 11-year-olds.
Yeah.
They become 12-year-olds. And then they get curious about things. You and I know, as male parents, that, as those physiological changes and curiosity starts to happen about the opposite sex, now they have access to this kind of private device with parents who often are not checking on that, or may not have certain controls in place and things like that. Not that that's a fail-safe.
Yeah, no.
Because even if you decide not to get your child a device at that age, they've got friends who do have one, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have these, hard conversations about spending the night at somebody else's house and who's going to be there and where their phone's going to be.
Yeah.
Are you going to have access to screens? Like, it's this whole different thing that, like, whenever we were growing up, it was not a deal.
No, you're having to ask way more questions.
Exactly.
Exactly. At least it feels that way.
That's right.
Than what my parents, had to ask.
So that really did, kind of pique my curiosity at what I was seeing going on. And, and we, at the same time, it's a Christian school and we understand the the biblical mandate, missional as it is. And maybe not all of our families are, espouse faith, but they know what they're getting whenever they come to SCS. And we're going to be talking about the Lord and presenting the gospel on a regular basis to them. And I just think, we're supposed to train our kids in the way they should go.
Yeah.
And that's our role as parents. And we partner with a nice Christian school and try to give our kids these nice opportunities. But then we may make the decision to give them, a device that is that's manipulating our children and is teaching them all kinds of things that you don't want them to go that way. And we allow them this access that is undoing what we're trying to do all day long. And you see that kids that get smartphones, I mean, if they're on an average of 4 hours a day, and that, the suicidal ideation and, things like that are a direct correlation for how many hours you're on these devices. And it's like, what are we doing? Right. You present it like that, and then you walk away from it and you see all the kids have phones. Yeah. And it's like, and I don't know.
Yeah.
What am
I going to do here? Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Right. So,
well, there was something too that you, I remember whenever you were getting stuff ready for your book, and that for me, because you talked about the statistical data and suicide rates going up, with the entrance of the iPhone and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I remember you saying in Mrs. Wardlaw's junior Bible class or doing research for was how many kids in the world of social media, for example, how many kids said who weren't allowed to have Snapchat would say, "I'm so glad my parents didn't let me have it." And then on the flip side,
that's crazy.
Flip side, asking them, "Hey, would you let your kid have it?" In ninth grade, and they're like,
"No way!"
Right?
No way.
To me, that was something that was so crazy because Snapchat's such a big thing for the youth, right? Facebook is for us old people, right? And Instagram's kind of the in between, but Snapchat's predominantly for teens, and and colleges. So I thought that was
crazy.
Crazy. Yeah,
it was crazy. Yeah, let's talk about it for a second because the kids are so they're as. Chris and I see this inside the school on a regular basis. It's like there's this real kind of lack of maturity. There's a real sweetness and all of that to kind of your middle school, kids. Like they'll just tell you, like what they're dealing with, or at least that was my experience. Is that they will, are very open about, well, here's what happened and here's what I did, and I know it was stupid, or as a principal, that's what I would hear often from kids, and then they go into being, freshmen and sophomores, and it's like they lock it down. They're not going to tell an adult anything. And they are like, you're going to get me in trouble with this if I say anything. But then they turn the corner, and it's like they're humans again. And they are, as juniors and seniors, they'll just be real with you. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know why my parents did that. Yeah. Because knowing what I know now, my kid is never getting a phone. They'll say things crazy like, they will. No, they'll never get one.
Period. We're not doing it.
And I'm like, you got one when you were 8, and they're like, yeah, I know. And because I know what I know, they ain't getting one.
Well, and then even that moment too, I deal with this student ministry. I asked this question a few weeks ago, like, okay, were you willing to give it up right now?
Not one chance. No way.
Okay.
I need it.
Right. So now there's this, this need that they have.
Absolutely. I'm so too addicted to give it up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
They won't say that.
They won't, but they're close.
Yeah. That was crazy to hear the kids, just be really open and honest about, it was terrible for me. It wasn't good. I saw all kinds of things that I can't unsee. Yeah. With my own child, it's going to be different. Yeah. And that really is kind of the hope, honestly, right now, is like we're in this in between where, the anxious generation.
Yes.
We had the staff read Anxious Generation. Yeah. And, there's all of this kind of, it almost is like to the point of certain things have come out that are now saying, look, it's basically negligent, to do this. It's like, letting your child smoke or something like that. I don't know if we're actually there, but that's, you're hearing enough of it that, a lot of parents who are giving devices now, it's like it's locked down and they can't do much with it or, or whatever. But at a certain point, whenever you turn those off or that, they were going somewhere and you needed to turn off some of the, the things that you had set on and you never turn them back on and you forget life gets busy and you don't realize that your kids just got
Yes.
unfiltered access 24/7. And you don't know why it is that their mood seems to be a little bit, down, or they seem like they haven't been getting a lot of sleep, or whatever it is. It's like, well, there's some candidates there. We should look at that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's huge.
but I don't know if that answers that question.
It does. I mean, it gives, for sure, there's a lot to chew on there, and hurry up and print this book so we can take a look at all the statistical stuff you had on it. So
email me. I'll email it to you.
Yeah, perfect. I like it. I like it. Okay, well now let's take a turn here, even further down this rabbit trail, right? That now throw AI into the mix, right? So far at this point, we've been talking about phones and social media and screens are everywhere.
Sure.
Well, now let's throw AI into the mix. How do we prepare our kids for this world ahead? Not even knowing what's ahead. Right? I mean, not even knowing where AI is going. How do you prepare, your kids for preparation to be equipped to handle a world that is becoming AI when you don't even know, where AI is going?
Yeah. So as I think about that, I think God's good.
Mm-hmm.
He made us on purpose for a purpose. We hear that often inside the school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also think that Christians are kind of challenged to be the ones who redeem the tools. So there was a time whenever radio came out, that people, like, oh, this is filling people's minds with bad things. And Billy Graham comes along, and you've got crusades, and what he's doing, and people coming to Christ through radio ministries. And I think about the same thing with television, and how is it that Christians, we have a role in redeeming the tools that we have access to.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying my best to think about, with our phones, you and I've been talking a lot about, being in control of your algorithm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Over the last 10, 15 years, people have been crying out for control, because you're just manipulated. Yeah. If you're not thoughtful about the algorithm, you're just being manipulated.
Yeah. So someone else is being thoughtful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I think, that is some of the response too, is like, we have to, it's ours to manage. If we're going to say yes to keeping these tools as a part of our life, we have to manage them. Yeah. And manage the amount of time we're going to spend on them, curate the kind of information that's going to come to us, because we do have a say in the algorithm. And if you don't, if while I'm saying that you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're being manipulated by your device. Sure. It is leading you in a direction. Yeah. And
whether you realize it or not.
Yeah. Because all the apps, all the technology has a designer, and the designer has a worldview. Yeah. And the worldview of that person is going to be what you're going to be headed towards. Mm-hmm. Everyone's being discipled. Yeah. We are all being discipled in some way. Yeah. And so we talk a lot about what we consume, influences what we produce. Yep. And so if we are consuming junk, we're going to produce junk. Yeah. And, if that's kind of what I'm looking for with, whenever I'm talking to my own children, my personal children about their, use of technology, is like, I can stand in the room for a couple of minutes. Yeah. And I can see what you've been watching, because the algorithm is going to show me what's next. Kind of the auto delivery of what video is next on the next reel is going to show me what you've been watching. Yeah. It's going to be themes. It's going to be a variation of that theme. Yeah. And and so if I'm looking at your reels, that you're watching for a couple minutes, I can see, are you consuming good? Or are you consuming bad? Yeah. Because we're going to be like what we watch over time. Yeah. And those are going to be our concerns. I can tell, what you care about. I can tell what you think about on a regular basis based off of what the algorithm shows me. And so if we're not in charge of that, if we're not being proactive in that, we are being manipulated by it. We're being discipled by someone else. We've left somebody else in charge of our discipleship, which I think is a tragedy, right? And it's a slow burn, and you look up and it sets this trajectory. And you look up and you go, how did I ever get here? Yeah. Well, it's because you led yourself, you liked this. Your eyes stayed on this kind of video for too long. And so now here's more of that. Yeah. Because the designer knows, how long your eyes were on that video.
And it's going to keep feeding you with it.
Which is so crazy, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
You asked about AI, and I
Yeah.
think the thing about AI that I think how we can prepare our kids well in this age is if you stick with me for a second, it's going to be that we build strong relationships with our kids.
Sure.
Authoritative relationships with our kids, where whenever they come to us, not that they ever left us,
Sure.
that we just have a relationship with them, and that they know that they get sound advice and wisdom from their parents who love them and don't, talk at them all the time. We have a relationship with them. It is authoritative. It's not a friendship.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to that.
That's
we're
big.
not quite there.
That's big. Yeah.
But we're working towards that end.
Yeah.
And Case and I are almost there, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. We're almost there. And, I still need to continue to challenge him, but it's becoming more of a brother, situation. He's 19 years old.
Right.
He's not 12.
Right.
Whenever he was 12, it was, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. And here's why, though. I'm going to explain to you, and we're going to talk about it, and you're not going to get to walk away. We're going to sit and talk about it.
Yeah.
And, if your child is used to that, that is the developing of a future friendship. Yeah. It's a relationship that I want to be lifelong. I'm saying all this to work up to my answer for AI. It's like inoculating your child, against, a artificial relationship, because AI is designed. You see these kind of positive affirmations you get if you get on an LLM and you're looking at ChatGPT or you're doing Gemini or whatever. Yeah. And you ask questions. It's like, oh, that's an insightful question.
You're a genius.
You're like, well, my God, I'm pretty smart. I think so myself. I'm not just a hat rack. Anyway, and I just think, that if that's what that's going to be like, is I'm going to go to this screen that's going to give me all the answers to everything in the world, and make me feel good about even asking the question.
Sure. Yeah.
All it's doing is training me to come to it.
Yeah. I'll take more of that. Yeah,
because of course, that feels good,
feels
right?
Great.
Well, it's only there to get you to come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have any feelings. Yeah. It's being designed by a designer, right? And so I know that my child is designed by a designer, and I know who that designer is, and that's the Lord Jesus. Yeah. And that if my role is to help train them in the way they should go, and to talk about Him when I rise and when I sleep and when I walk walk by the way, that if I'm living that that Deuteronomy 6 life, then I think my role with my kid is to be an authoritative figure in their life, so that they can know Dad is connected to the well, Mom is connected to the well. I need to be able to get my own drink from the well. Right. And so I need a relationship with the same Father that my Father has a relationship with. Yeah. And He's going to get that. And Arden is going to get that. Our daughter's going to get that from seeing Allison and I do that. Yeah. And so my inoculation about AI, and just for my kids to make good choices and good decisions, is talking about those things with them. And that's our dinner conversations are about that. And we use it. And then we say, what's good about this? What's bad about this? Yeah. How can we redeem this? How can we use this to be what's good about it? What's bad about it? Yeah. And that we keep that front of mind, as we engage with these things, and say, how much am I engaging with this thing? Is it too much? Do I feel like I'm relying on it? Do I feel like I'm just offloading a piece of my brain and my capabilities to a machine that, if heaven forbid the network goes down, that now I'm sunk, because I don't know how to think. Yeah. So we have conversations like that. And I think that whenever you're preparing your child for an AI world, you've got to have a deep relationship. That's the inoculation and how I'm preparing the two kids that have been entrusted to my care. Yeah. Is to have them be thoughtful, deep thinkers, hard workers who know the Lord Jesus, and not in that order. It'd be from the last to the first.
Yeah, the first. Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't know if that.
All right, no, that's really good stuff. As we look to land this plane, as we kind of close this our first video podcast out.
Love it.
I've enjoyed this.
It's awesome.
Joey's the guy that started Family Matters, by the way, and so it's really cool to be able to do this first podcast in this way, seeing, where it will go.
Yeah.
Really
Hopefully
awesome.
people watch it. That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, recap, on what next steps are, right?
Yeah.
So you've got parents that don't have kids, possibly, they're not parents yet, but they're young married couple trying to figure out, they know they're going to have kids. And
Yeah.
what does this look like? You've got, I would imagine, parents of elementary and middle school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
You might have some matriarchs that are watching this, looking at their grandkids, wondering, this scares me, so much. As we talk about next steps for, you to be able to provide guidance, and I'm going to leave this open-ended. I won't won't talk about phones necessarily. If you want to go there, feel free to. But, what would be next steps that you would give families as they really do take this the approach, try to figure out, navigate how they're going to handle the technology?
Yeah.
What kind of guidance would you give them? As you talk about the research you did in Pocket Idols.
Yeah.
What do you think would be really beneficial for them to know?
Well, there's a lot of responsibility, I feel, in that question, honestly. And I think Allison and I have been trying to do it our best, and it's very imperfect. And, we've not been in, lockstep what we did with Case is exactly what we've done with Arden or anything like that. Yeah. But I will say, being where we are with Case, and so I can kind of look back at it a little bit while I'm still getting the chance to make some of these decisions with Arden. I've asked Case very transparently, over the course of his life, multiple times, given what we've done as parents, what do you think you'll do? Yeah. That same kind of question that we were asking to the juniors and seniors. Yeah. I've asked him that question before, and he says, I'm going to do, what y'all did with me, and which I think is probably the best compliment he's ever paid.
That's a huge compliment.
And which I love. That's great. We'll call it a win.
Yeah,
and we waited. So I think the first thing I would say is wait as long as you can. Yeah. Because the fact is that that the day you give your child kind of personal access is the day that your voice becomes maybe second. And so I don't think that people understand that that's the decision they're making. No. And especially whenever the kid is so young, because you don't think of your kid like that. Yeah. But
I didn't think of it that way.
Sure.
As we gave our daughters their first phone. Yeah. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm going to lock this thing down. We're going to be good to go.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this the right way.
Right.
And you learn pretty quickly where you think you've got this figured out.
That's right. And it'll sound crazy to most people. And, again, it's a missional Christian school, and I've been here, like I said, for 20 years, and he's 19 years old. So from seeing what I saw, we decided that we would wait until he was, we didn't tie it as much to an age. There's an age that goes along with it because of our standpoint was, are you ready to drive?
Yeah. So
this is going to feel like a rug pull for a second.
Sure.
But young kids don't understand their own mortality. Yeah. We keep them away from that. Yeah. They may get the shock of having a grandparent pass away, an untimely death, but that is very rare, for kids up until their teenage years. Yeah. They probably haven't. Yeah. Most haven't lost somebody that was very significant to them that they saw all the time. And so so stay with me for a second.
Okay, I got you. I'm with you.
So the thing that I thought was, as I saw those suicide rates go up and the suicidal ideation rates go up, they're kids that don't understand death. Like they don't understand life and death. Yeah. And so they can make a flippant decision about their own life. As an immature kid. Yeah. They're kids killing themselves, or thinking about killing themselves. And so my kind of take on it was there were some of this like wait till 8th and some of these other kind of ideas out there. And I thought, what do I think about that? And I was like, a number, an age, what do you go with? And I thought, kids understand their mortality whenever they're driving 70 miles an hour, 8 inches away from somebody else.
Sure.
And they go, oh, I could die.
Yeah.
And it's the first time in their life they think about, I could die.
Yeah.
I could kill that person
Yeah.
because of this car that I'm in.
Yeah.
And I was seeing the rates of cell phone adoption and the number of drivers were like in a what do you call it? An adverse relationship with each other. So like the number of kids driving at 16 years old was going down. The number of suicidal ideation was going up.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need to wait until kids can drive.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, or at least till they're prepared to drive.
Yeah.
So what we did with Case was whenever you're done with your driver's ed course and you are certified to be able to go take your test to get your driver's license, we will get you a phone.
Okay.
Is how we did it.
Yeah.
And somebody right now, if they made it to this point in the podcast, thinking that dude's a freaking genius.
Yeah.
He says humbly.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
and I was, and really, we did that. You know, I think it was like 23 or 28 days before Case's 16th birthday that he got his first phone.
Okay. Yeah.
Of course, he was the only kid without a phone for years.
Yeah.
So I say that, you know, to be
we,
sure that there was nobody else doing this at that time.
Yeah, we might need to have him on the podcast next to talk about I'm the only 16-year-old that doesn't have a phone.
Yes.
That's interesting perspective.
Yes. But then to hear him come back and say, I'm going to do it that way.
Yep. That's the way I'm going to have it. Yeah.
And so, and he gets on to us, honestly.
That's
now,
great.
this is the rest of the story, is he gets on to us with how much we will let Arden have kind of like leeway.
That is so interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
And he's looking back like,
you guys need to tighten your reins.
Yeah, what are you doing? And he's the one telling us, like, I don't know that one's good for her, you know, or whatever. And it's like, okay, you know, we're doing it. You know, this is us doing this. You get to do it in the future, but we're doing it now. You know, and so anyway, that's kind of outside the box thinking. But my thinking was this, just like we talked earlier about, you know, that transition from being freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Yeah. And I really do think. My grandmother said freshmen are human becomings. Like that was her deal with freshmen. They're not there yet. Yeah. You know, they're just human becomings.
Sure.
And there was something to that. It's like, you know, they're still cliquey and like, you know, real hard on each other. Yeah. And the girls, oh my gosh, that's rough. Yeah. And so you're skipping that. Yeah. You know, if they have a phone while all that's going on, there is all this tongue wagging that goes on. Yeah. In middle school, it's brutal. Yeah. You know, guys and girls, actually, it's worse for girls. And if you look at the, you know, suicidal ideation rates, girls are outnumbered in that. Yeah. And it's because they're so rough with each other. Sure. They're so tough on each other. And it's so mental. Yeah. You know, it's who you leave out of things. And it's what you know this. You got the girls, right?
All three daughters. Yeah,
and so, you know, and they're texting about each other and leaving each other out of things and not inviting, you know, people and making sure that they know that they weren't invited and all of that stuff. And it's brutal. So if I wait, you know, and I just skip that, it's still going to happen.
Yeah,
it's still going to happen.
Yeah, sure. But
they don't have the evidence to come and show you that it's happening. Yeah. And we still have that time together as a family because honestly, you know, you lose that time with your kids. You know, they're going to go and they're going to be locked in on what's happening elsewhere and they're not going to be where their feet are. They're mentally going to be somewhere else. Yeah. You know, they're going to be mentally in somebody else's house watching what some other kid is doing. Sure. And I want them here at my house because I have a short window of time to be able to train them in the way they should go. It all goes back to the Deuteronomy 6 deal of what it is that we're supposed to be doing. And so I'm often thinking about that, the Shema, you should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way and when you lie down and when you rise. And 90% of the time I'm going to have, Chris, with my two kids and my wife are going to have with my two kids are between the ages of 0 and 18. And after that, I'm in 10% time. Yeah. And so with that 90% time, I want to be as intentional as possible. And I want to train them and I want for them to get through as much of that stuff that you can navigate relationships with the guidance of mom and dad because you're still going to have strife. You're still going to have trials. But whenever you have all these other inputs telling you what's right and what's wrong and you're modeling after, you know, other immature kids, like I don't want that for them. You know, they're going to get enough of that just naturally without a phone in their pocket. So I'm talking a lot about phones, but I think it's a big deal because it's ubiquitous and it's what they think about on a regular basis. It gets parts of your brain. It's designed so perfectly that it takes your attention. It steals your attention. which is the wrong word because we're giving it
Yeah, we
our
are giving
attention.
it.
We're,
Yeah.
you know,
We're
willingly letting
Yeah.
it being
Yeah.
taken from us, right?
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that resonates, but that's kind of my guidance is like, just wait as long as you can. And I also feel bad for the, you know, for the single moms out there and for the, you know, the dual homes and, you know, the divorce situations where, you know, mom and dad aren't on the same page and, you know, one gets on a phone and the other one doesn't. And, you know, there's so many terrible
so tough.
things that it's hard for
Yeah.
parents to be able to navigate. And it's hard for me to speak to that context. I'm in a context where Alice and I are on the same page and we're trying our best to train our kids in the way they should go. And we fail on a regular basis. And it's hard for us.
Yeah.
And we're both Christian school,
Yeah.
you know, teachers and administrators, and it's hard for us.
Yeah.
So I feel for families, and I think you wait as long as you can and you build your relationship with your child. And Alice and I remind each other on a regular basis, it's about getting them to come home for Christmas. You know, like we'll say, you know, we'll remind each other, like if I want to talk at my kids, do I want them to come home for Christmas?
Yeah.
Because if I talk at my kids, there's a higher likelihood that they are not coming home for Christmas.
Something better.
If I have a relationship with my kids,
Yeah.
then there's a higher likelihood that they're coming home for Christmas because I'm in 10% time.
Sure.
And I can only imagine how my heart would break if they weren't coming home for Christmas, you know, or if I wasn't getting to see them at the times where they did have an opportunity to come and see, or are they picking up the phone and calling for wisdom, you know, because advice you can get from your LLM, you know, but are they pulling on the relationships that they have with their mom and dad because they know wisdom comes from those people who are getting it from the Lord.
Yeah,
you know,
big.
so
That's big. It's beautiful. Well, it's been good, man.
Yeah,
It's been fun.
I love it.
I mean, crazy. Like there's fear and scared. You know, I'm scared a little bit, and my kids are, you know, my youngest is in 8th grade, but we're still navigating this. And,
yeah,
and so,
and mine's in 6th.
Yeah.
So we're still going through it
we're
together.
still doing it. Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we still got a long way to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if the Lord lets us stay, we got a long way to go.
There you go.
So
There you go.
it's good.
Well, I hope you have been encouraged, blessed, challenged in this time in this Family Matters in our first video podcast. Not sure what it looks like in the future, but I'm glad we get to do this one today. And so, if you have any questions, I know Joey would love to be able to discuss that with you. You can see the passion that God has given him in this, and the desire he has, and the research that he's done. And so, really thankful, for your time today in this.
God's so good. Thanks for asking me to do it.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. We'll probably do it again sometime.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in.
So, well, that is all the time we have for now. Hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day, of your week, of your month. Chase after our Father with everything you got. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.